creatures proper to that zone. The tree held a conversation through its foliage with the beings of the sky. When the white youth turned to face south, he perceived in the midst of a great grassy plain the quiet lake of milk that no breath of wind ever stirs, and around the shores of the lake were swamps of curdle. To the north of him a somber forest stood with trees that rustled day and night, and therein was moving every kind of beast. Tall mountains were lifting beyond it, and appeared to be wearing caps of white rabbit fur. They leaned against the sky and protected this middle place from the northern wind. A thicket of scrub stretched out to the west, and beyond it stood a forest of tall firs. Behind the forest gleamed a number of blunt-headed solitary peaks. This was the manner, then, of the world in which the white youth beheld the light of day. Presently tired, however, of being alone, he went over to the gigantic tree of life. Honored high mistress, mother of my tree and my dwelling place, he prayed. Everything that lives exists in pairs and propagates descendants, but I am alone. I want now to travel and to seek a wife of my own kind. I wish to measure my strength against my kind. I want to become acquainted with men, to live according to the manner of men. Do not deny me thy blessing, I do humbly pray. I bow my head and bend my knee. Then the leaves of the tree began murmuring, and a fine milk-white rain descended from them upon the white youth. A warm breath of wind could be felt. The tree began to groan, and out of its roots a female figure emerged to the waist, a woman of middle age, with earnest regard, hair flowing free, and bosom bare. The goddess offered her milk to the youth from a sumptuous breast, and after partaking of it he felt his strength increase 100-fold. At the same time the goddess promised the youth every happiness, and blessed him in such a way that neither water nor fire, iron, nor anything else could do him any harm. From the umbilical spot the hero departed to realize his destiny. His adult deeds bore creative power into the world. Sang the aged Vanamoan, lakes swelled up, and earth was shaken, and the coppery mountains trembled, and the mighty rocks resounded, and the mountains clove asunder. On the shore the stones were shattered. The stanza of the hero part resounds with the magic of the world of power. Similarly, the sword edge of the hero warrior flashes with the energy of the creative source. Before it falls the shells of the outworn. For the mythological hero is the champion not of things become, but of things becoming. The dragon to be slain by him is precisely the monster of the status quo. Hold fast the keeper of the past. From obscurity the hero emerges, but the enemy is great and conspicuous in the seat of power. He is enemy, dragon, tyrant, because he turns to his own advantage the authority of his position. He is holdfast not because he keeps the past, but because he keeps. The tyrant is proud, and therein resides his doom. He is proud because he thinks of his strength at his own. Thus he is in a clown role. As a mistaker of shadow for substance, he is its destiny to be tricked. The mythological hero, reappearing from the darkness that is the source of the shapes of the day, brings a knowledge of the secret of the tyrant's doom. With a gesture as simple as the pressing of a button, he annihilates the impressive configuration. The hero deed is a continuous shattering of the crystallizations of the moment. The cycle rolls. Mythology focuses on the flowing point. Transformation, fluidity, not stubborn ponderosity, is the characteristic of the living God. The great figure of the moment exists only to the broken, cut into chunks and scattered abroad. Briefly, the ogre tyrant is the champion of the prodigious fact. The hero, the champion of creative life. The world period of the hero in human form begins only when the villages and cities have expanded over the land, many monsters remaining from set themselves against the human community. They have to be cleared away. Furthermore, tyrants of human breed, usurping to themselves the goods of their neighbors, arise and are on the cause of widespread misery. These have to be suppressed. The elementary deeds of the hero are those of the clearing of the field. Kuchuk, yes, or blood-clad boy, when he had been taken from the pot and had grown to manhood in a day, slew the murderous son-in-law of his foster parents, then proceeded against the ogres of the countryside. He exterminated a tribe of cruel bears, with the exception of one female, who was about to become a mother. She pleaded so pitifully for her life that he spared her. If he had not done this, there would have been no bears in the world. Then he slaughtered a tribe of snakes, but again, with the exception of one who was about to become a mother. Next, he deliberately walked along a road which he had been. Next, he deliberately walked along a road which he had been told was dangerous. As he was going along, a great windstorm struck him, and at last carried him into the mouth of a great fish. This was a suckerfish, and the wind was its suckling. When he got to the stomach of the fish, he saw a great many people. Many of them were dead, but some were still alive. He said to the people, "Ah, there must be a heart somewhere here. We will have a dance." So he painted his face white, his eyes and mouth with black circles, and tied a white rock knife on his head, so that the point stuck up. Some rattles made of hoofs were also brought. Then the people started to dance. For a while Bloodclot sat making wing motions with his hands and singing songs. Then he stood up and danced, jumping up and down until the knife on his head struck the heart. Then he cut the heart down. Next he cut through between the ribs of the fish and let all the people out. Again Bloodclot said he must go on with his travels. Before starting, the people warned him, saying that after a while he would see a woman who was also challenging people to wrestle with her, but that he must not speak to her. He gave no heed to what they said, and after he had gone a little way, he saw a woman who called him to come over. "No," said Bloodclot, "I am in a hurry." However, at the fourth time the woman asked him to come over. He said, "Yes, but you must wait a little while, for I am tired. I wish to rest. When I have rested, I will come over and wrestle with you." Now while he was resting, he saw many large knives sticking up from the ground, almost hidden by straw. Then he knew that the woman killed the people she wrestled with by throwing them down on the knives. When he was rested, he went on, and the woman asked him to stand up in the place where he had seen the knives. But he said, "No, I am not quite ready. Let us play a little before we begin." So he began to play with the woman, but quickly caught hold of her, threw her upon the knives, and cut her in two. Bloodclot took up his travels again, and after a while came to a camp where there were some old women. The old women told him that a little farther on he would come to a woman with a swing, but on no account must he ride with her. After a time he came to a place where he saw a swing on the bank of a swift stream. There was a woman swinging on it. He watched her a while and saw that she killed people by swinging them out and dropping them into the water. When he found this out, he came up to the woman. "You have a swing here. Let me see you swing," he said. "No," said the woman, "I want to see you swing." "Well," said Bloodclot, "but you must swing first." "Well," said the woman, "now I shall swing. Watch me, then I shall see you do it." So the woman swung up over the stream. As she did this, he saw how it worked. Then he said to the woman, "You swing again while I get ready." But as the woman swung out this time, he cut the vine and let her drop into the water. This happened on Cutbank Creek. We are familiar with such deeds from our Jack the Giant Killer nursery tales and the classical accounts of the labors of such heroes as Heracles and Theseus. They abound also in the legends of the Christian saints, as in the following charming French tale of Saint Martha. There was at that time on the banks of the Rhone, in a forest situated between Avignon and Saint Martha, at the earnest request of the people, went against the dragon. Having found it in the forest in the act of devouring a man, she sprinkled holy water on it and exhibited a crucifix. Immediately the monster, vanquished, came like a lamb to the side of the saint, who passed her belt around its neck and conducted it to the neighboring village. There the populace slew it with stones and staffs. And since the dragon had been known to the people under the name of Tarask, the town took the name of Tarascon in remembrance. Up to then it had been called Norlook, which is to say Black Lake, an account of the somber forests which there bordered the stream. The warrior kings of antiquity regarded their work in the spirit of the monster slayer. This formula, indeed, of the shining hero going against the dragon has been the great device of self-justification for all crusades. Numberless memorial tablets have been composed with the grandiose complacency of the following uniform of Sargon of Aragade, destroyer of the ancient cities of the Sumerians, from whom his own people had derived their civilization. Sargon, king of Aragade, vicegerent of the goddess Ishtar, king of Kish; Bashishu of the god Anu, king of the land; great Ishaku of the god Enlil. The city of Urluk he smote, and its wall he destroyed. With the people of Uruk he battled, and he captured him, and in fetters led him through the gates of Enlil. Sargon, king of Aragade, battled with the man of Ur, and vanquished him. His city he smote, and its wall he destroyed. Enenamar he smote, and its wall he destroyed, and its entire territory from Lagash to the sea he smote. His weapons he washed in the sea. And the fourth section is called the hero as lover. The hegemony wrestled from the enemy, the freedom won from the malice of the monster, the life energy released from the tolls of the tyrant holdfast, is symbolized as a woman. She is the maiden of the innumerable dragon slayings, the bride abducted from the jealous father, the virgin rescued from the unholy lover. She is the other portion of the hero himself, for each is born. For each is a warrior, and she is fame. She is the image of his destiny, which he is to release from the prison of enveloping circumstance. But where he is ignorant of his destiny or deluded by false considerations, no effort on his part will overcome the obstacles. The magnificent youth, Cuchulainn, at the court of his uncle Concobar the king, aroused the anxiety of the barons for the virtue against the Amazon, Ave, on whom he begot a son. Finally slaying a hag who disputed him with a narrow path along the edge of the cliff, he started home for Ireland. One further adventure of battle and love, and Cuchulainn returned to find Forgal the Wily still against him. He simply carried the daughter off this time, and they were married at the court of the king. The adventure itself had given him the capacity to annihilate all opposition. The only annoyance was that Uncle Kokobar, the king, exercised on the bride his royal prerogative, and before she passed officially to the groom, the motive of the difficult task as prerequisite to the bridal bed is spun the hero deeds of all time and all the world. In stories of this pattern, the parent is in the role of holdfast. The hero's artful solution of the task amounts to a slaying of the dragon. The test imposed upon difficulties beyond measure. They seem to represent an absolute refusal on the part of the parent ogre to permit life to go its way. Nevertheless, when a fit candidate appears, no task in the world is beyond his skill. Unpredicted helpers, miracles of time and space further his project, destiny itself. The maiden lends a hand and betrays a weak spot in the parental system. Barriers, fetters, chasms, fronts of every kind dissolve before the authoritative presence of the hero. The eye of the ordained victor immediately perceives the chink in every fortress of circumstance, and his blow can cleave it wide. The most eloquent and deep driving of the trysts in this colorful adventure of Cuchulainn is that of the unique invisible path, which was open to the hero with the rolling of the wheel and the apple. This is to be read as symbolic and instructive of the miracle of destiny to a man not led astray from himself by sentimental stemming from the surfaces of what he sees, but courageously responding to the dynamics of his own nature, to a man who is, as Nietzsche phrases it, a wheel rolling of itself. Difficulties melt and the unpredictable highway opens as he goes.